somehow lose our way. We'll be okay. We'll be okay. You're all I want. You're all I need. You're amazing, and you have me. It doesn't matter what ever comes to be. Oh, even if we somehow lose our way, we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
Welcome to another episode of Songs by my Soba. Today I have a special guest. His name is Darryl Sanchez.
Hi.
And he's a Peace Corps volunteer, and he's also my boyfriend. We're gonna fix the lighting there. Okay. And so so I'm a health education volunteer. What type of volunteer are you, Darryl?
I'm in COD, which is Community Organizing and Development.
Okay, and where do you live in Moldova?
I live in the south of Moldova called Gagauzia in the city of Chedorlunga, and is primarily Russian speaking.
Yes. So Darryl speaks Russian in his day-to-day, and I speak Romanian. Just so those of you at home who don't know about that, there are two languages spoken in Moldova, Russian and Romanian. So today we thought we would talk about relationships in Moldova because it has been an interesting topic for us as Peace Corps volunteers, for all the volunteers to see how Moldovans interact. And again, this is just through our personal experience. We're not trying to speak for all Moldovans. It's just what we've observed, me being from a village or living in a village, and Darryl in a city. So first off, what I would say is that typically in Moldova, people overall seem to get married, or at least are expected to get married a lot earlier. Maybe like 19 through like 25. Yeah, but you speak about your experience in the city.
So I live in a city. It's fairly big, about 19,000 people, which is big for Moldova. And I agree with Angela that there's a lot of expectation among, for the older generation, and for their kids who are 20, 21, 22, there's this pressure to find somebody like a girlfriend, boyfriend, and get married. For a lot of Moldovans, being in a relationship means that you're supposed to be married, as well as for having babies. As a guy, there's definitely pressure, but not as much as if I was a woman, right? Because for me, there's no. A lot of my colleagues, a lot of my older Moldovan friends, they say, "Oh, you're a man. It's okay. You'll find a girlfriend. Like there's no really that time pressure. Whereas for women, there's more
pressure. Which that's the same probably all over the world too. Yeah. And then another thing that you said yesterday is that there's really no dating culture in Moldova. That's what Darryl was saying. It's kind of like you're expected to meet somebody. You maybe go out a couple of times and then you date. I'm sorry, you get married and then you have a child. Yeah. And then you kind of establish your household, which I'm sure that's really how it was for my parents' generation as well. I mean, I know it was because my parents maybe were together for 4 months and then they had a baby. So and again, that's me speaking again from the village and also in the city, there's seeing that idea that there's not really a lot of dating going on. And another big thing in Moldova is that migration is a huge issue, I would say, currently in Moldova. In any village that you're in or a city, about half of that population will be abroad, which then kind of disrupts the typical family model or dynamic or system. So either the husband's abroad or the wife's abroad. and so that I've seen on the news and in talking with my host mother has led the divorce rates to increase.
Yeah, and another thing about that is, me and Angela, we're about 3 hours apart from each other, and there, my friends and my colleagues would joke, and also with Angela too. I'm there, and they'd be asking me, "Oh, your girlfriend's over in that other city. We'll find you a Moldovan girlfriend." And I would say, "Well, I'm taken." They say, "No, no, no, it's okay. We'll find you another one." They say it as a joke, but at the same time, there's kind of like this, when you look under it, deeper into the joke, it's like there's this idea because husbands and wives are sometimes they spend years away from each other being abroad, working in Romania, in Russia, and then when they come back together after so many time, being apart, there's this unspoken rule that an affair may or may not have happened, and so but nobody talks about it. And so a lot of people say that as a joke. Oh, it's okay. She won't know. There's a Moldovan, girl here, etc., etc.
And I agree. I agree with what he's saying. It's kind of like the affair is kind of accepted, but only on the DL.
Yeah.
And I think it's also because we're foreigners, so they want to see us with one of their people.
Yeah.
With a Moldovan as well, and. Yeah, so we all often get those comments. And then the next comment we also always get is, "Oh, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have children?" And my famous response is, "Are you going to pay for my wedding?"
Yeah.
Because for me, marriage is like about, if anything else, it's financial. Because to have, not marriage, but having a wedding in and of itself it's expensive.
Yeah.
And it's expensive here too, but for them, it's a really big event, which it is for people in the United States as well, but I think that for our generation, it's less important the wedding itself, and maybe having a home is more important, or certain other things. And for Moldovans, a home is also a big thing as well. But that's a question we're often asked, but I always say I'm focusing on my career, seeing my family, and making money. Obviously, we're focusing on our relationship too, but the focal point is bettering ourselves as individuals. Whereas here, it's definitely on like the family unit, which is still really important too.
Yeah, and this ties on to the fact that you said earlier about there's not really a dating culture. As we said before, Moldovans, for them, if you're dating somebody, it means that it's going to lead to marriage. Whereas for a lot of Americans and a lot of other Western societies, you date because you want to find out what you like, what you don't like in the relationship. You're trying to explore, what works for you, what doesn't. But for Moldovans, they don't think that way. And so, like Angela said, we get asked all the time, "Oh, when are you going to get married? Are you going to get married in Moldova? Are you going to get married in America?" And for me, I always say, well, no, we've talked about it, but it's not really the priority. Whereas and this is another point is that for Moldovans, I think marriage is less about the individuals, like the bride and the groom. It's more about the community. It's the mentality that a big wedding is needed, and Moldovan weddings can last for days.
Yeah, they last a long time.
Yeah, about 3 days. Like they go just to go party, drink, go crazy, and it's a lot of fun. But it's a community event. I remember I have friends in my site, and they were telling me how tired they were when they got married. They're just so exhausted. They're so tired because the groom, he's got his suit. The wife, the bride, has got her white dress, and they always had to talk to everybody and dance. And it's imagine doing that for 3 days.
Yeah, and I don't know if all of them are 3 days. The one I went to was just almost 24 hours. Yeah. So it was pretty long. But you're right, there are other events that will follow after the main ceremony.
But the bride and the groom are stressed out, and they have to kind of pull themselves together.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's community party.
Community based.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then one final thing to add, like he said, it's kind of about the community. One sort of tradition that's in my village, and I don't think every family does it or every girl goes through it, but typically, so when I first started my service at night, I would hear beeps from a car, driving, and then everyone would say, "Oh, someone's getting married." And I didn't realize that it's a tradition where basically a girl is stolen or kidnapped, from her house by a man. And I believe previously this would actually be a girl and a man who had only met briefly, and then she was taken, and then she would be wed, and maybe she potentially could be underage or I'm not really 100% sure.
Yeah.
But now they continue that tradition. But let's say like they actually have a relationship and know each other. He'll still go to the parents' house and like take her, meaning that I am now going to marry her. And I believe the next day they go to her parents' house to confirm that it is official. Yeah. I could have that part confused, but that is one of those. That was one of the traditions that I really wasn't comfortable with at first, because my first reaction is, I don't want anyone to ever kidnap me, especially not the person I'm going to potentially marry. Mm-hmm. But for them, it's their tradition, it's their culture, and it's rooted in something that now has evolved over time.
Something like, so now, usually like the boyfriend and the girlfriend, they've talked about it before, and then the boyfriend would come and steal the girl, and now it's like done for hilarity, for fun, like, oh, he's stealing her, haha, they're gonna get married, everybody's happy. But it like what you said, it comes from this older tradition of actually stealing a girl to marry, which is still done in many countries.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's a little bit unsettling, is because we know that there are women who are actually kidnapped and sold and etc. So that's why it is a bit of an issue. But I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was an interesting tradition. So that's a little bit about Moldovan, or relationships in Moldova, through our Peace Corps volunteer perspectives from a village and from a city. So we hope you have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week on Songs Bama Soba. Bye.
Bye.